Hi there, it's Debbie from Brand Magic, and I want to talk to you a little bit about storytelling. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story as to how I got into branding, and it goes way back to when I was growing up in apartheid South Africa. And I grew up in a very small bush town on the border of the Kruger National Park. Now, on the weekends when kids in Sydney were heading off to the beach and surfing, we were actually heading into the bush and we were checking out elephant and lion and zebra and giraffe, and it was quite an amazing environment to grow up in. But the interesting thing about growing up in apartheid South Africa was the fact that we had sanctions placed on us. And this meant that we literally grew up without the likes of McDonald's, Pepsi, Snickers, and even Nike in our country on the shelves that we could buy from. So there were a lot that we didn't have access to. Yet somehow, being a kid growing up in South Africa, I still knew about these brands. I still knew about McDonald's. And so it really fascinated me how it was possible that a brand from across the ocean that did not appear anywhere in the country, let's face it, if they're not in the country, there is no advertising, no billboards, no TV adverts, no radio, nothing in the newspapers or magazines. There literally was no advertising whatsoever, yet I still knew about some of these brands. And this absolutely fascinated me. And the reason why that happened was because people would go overseas and they would come back with incredible stories about, this fast food chain that was pretty much on every second street corner, that you could go in and get a burger that was produced within minutes. And if it wasn't sold in 30 seconds, the rumor that we got was that these burgers were thrown out. Now, coming from a third world country where half the country is below the poverty line, this kind of lavishness and exuberance just seemed to be folklore and almost impossible. And so McDonald's built itself a reputation for being this incredible fast food chain that was accessible to everyone and was producing food at such an incredible rate. So branding became this amazing thing to me where I realized that businesses would be able to go well past boundaries and borders and sanctions and cultures to be able to get their message across. And branding really does come down to what your reputation is. So this is what really started fascinating me about branding. But what also then started coming to light was the storytelling that starts to happen when brands really tap into the real essence of what they're about, how they communicate with people, how they try and connect and resonate and say, well, you know what, this is what we stand for, and this is what we're all about. And there's an advert that Westpac has been putting up on TV lately, and it's all about rescuing this man and his son out of the ocean after their boat capsized. And they mention the fact that these two people were actually not Westpac clients, but Westpac is for the people. So, even in their adverts, storytelling can become such a big, powerful thing. And a lot of businesses do this incredibly well. I remember when I was growing up in South Africa, a very popular car of choice was the Volkswagen, which was the people's car. And we had some incredible adverts that really connected and resonated with us. And the music that they had that related back to these adverts are still songs and things that resonate in my mind. And if I hear that, I'm pulled back in such a nostalgic way to those times. And I remember the brand, the advert, the stories that go along with that. So what I want to encourage you to do is to think about what your story is. What makes you different? What can you tell your customers that will help them connect and understand you better? Is there something that is going to set you apart from your competitor? The reality is that too many businesses spend their time talking about the benefits and the features. And the reality is that nobody can remember that kind of stuff. But I guess what you will probably remember after listening to me talk is the fact that I grew up in apartheid South Africa. You might even recall that the name of the town that I grew up in was White River, and that is the name of my business, because that is my little piece of home that I have with me every single day. And White River is an important part of my life because my family still live there. And being a very family-orientated person, it means that so much more is wrapped up in the story of my business. I love to treat my clients and my team as though they are family members as well. So if you're able to connect with people and tell them something that's a bit different about you, something that is unique to you, there's a much higher chance of people going, well, I want to work with this particular company because they feel real, they feel authentic. So what is it that you can do? And I guess the way I would look at it is say, you need to go back to why you actually started in business. There must have been a reason. What was it? Tap into that, because that is a very strong original emotion. Look at how you can help people. And in your story, talk about them and see how you can connect your story back to them in any particular way. So your story doesn't have to be a long one. Your story doesn't have to take 3 hours to tell. In fact, it's a very good idea to have a short elevator pitch style story where the whole idea is that if you were to talk to someone in an elevator from the time you get in the ground floor up to the top level, you would have been able to tell exactly what your pitch is. It's not something that needs to be long and lengthy, but it does need to be engaging. And then you can have your other story where you elaborate a little bit more on the nuances and you bring in stories that can connect people, examples, anything along those lines. So I encourage you to think about what your story is. How can you tell your brand story that can really connect and resonate with your customers? And let's see if we can start bringing a little bit of life into branding and storytelling.